Baldur's Gate 3 is a game with many quests, but despite the great number of quests in the game, each quest is filled with its own interesting characters and narratives, and the side quests are really one of the main highlights of the game as a whole. But of course, not everything can be perfect, and Baldur's Gate 3 is home to quite a few quests which are just frustrating, underwhelming, and truly lack the quality of the rest of the game's quests. Today I wanted to discuss some of these quests with you, and I would also love to hear what quests you think are the worst among this list or even outside of it. Also, if you enjoy this type of content, please consider subbing to the channel and dropping a like, and without further ado, let's get right into it. This quest is easily one of the worst on this list, and is actually the one that inspired the idea for this video. The quest Free the Artist first begins in Act 1, when you stumble upon Oscar Fevris, a painter being held by the Zhentarim in Walkeen's Rest. You've got a few options in freeing him, by either buying him out, persuading the Zhents to let him go, or simply wiping them out and talking to him thereafter. Whatever way you choose to save Oscar out of pure curiosity, he promises you that a wealthy patron of his will reward you for your troubles and asks you to find him when you get to Baldur's Gate. Fast forward to Act 3 of the game and you can actually find him, but you'll soon regret ever saving him. You find that Oscar is now married to Lady Janeth, but their mansion has gone full poltergeist and ghosts. Their furniture is flying around the mansion's rooms and invisible spirits constantly try to attack you and your party. This sounds like an awesome idea in theory, but in execution it falls very flat. When you find Oscar, you'll find that he's also possessed and now attacking you. You then have to knock him out and Lady Janeth will point you towards his atelier, where you find a hidden portrait that lashes out at you and cannot be destroyed by normal means. Until this point, this quest was fairly okay, and it felt like it was building to an even better conclusion, especially as it started all the way back in Act 1 of the game. But unfortunately, this is where it starts to go downhill. To deal with the atelier, you'll need a special item known as the Torch of Revocation, which will drag you into another boring side quest involving a character known as Mystic Carrion, who will only help you if you help him find his servant. Once you do this and retrieve the torch, you can torch the painting and free the ghost of Kerry Evanfield, who storms off to confront Oscar. Depending on your choices here, she'll either spare him, leave the world peacefully, or straight up kill him, which ironically gives you the best reward for this quest, an item that revives the wearer once per long rest. But of course, on most of our first playthroughs of the quest, we'll save him and get a reward that's just a self-portrait painting with no utility at all. For all of its build-up and being one of the very few side quests in the entire game that starts in Act 1 and continues all the way in Act 3, Free the Artist definitely feels like a quest you only do once for curiosity's sake. It's just not worth dealing with the frustration of poltergeists constantly attacking you, and an underwhelming reward that makes this quest truly one of the most forgettable and weak quests in the entire game. You'll probably soon notice a pattern in this video, and that's that most of the quests on this list are from Act 3 of the game. Well, this one follows that trend, and is one of the first you'll do once you enter Act 3 as well. Investigate the Suspicious Toys starts out with a strong enough hook, as you'll stumble upon what looks like a pile of children's toys donated to Rivington refugees, only to realize that they're laced with explosives. It's a pretty interesting setup, and one that could have made for a great quest. You'll follow the trail back to Arthur, who's a local toy maker with a basement full of traps, letters, and a locked chest containing the explosive toys in question. So far, the quest was pretty good, but then it starts to immediately go downhill. You can confront Arthur either there at the front of his mansion, or later at the Sheriff's Caress, where he'll spill the beans that he was blackmailed into distributing these explosive toys by people at Feloga's Fireworks in the lower city of Baldur's Gate. Fast forwarding a little bit, you'll sneak into the shop and eventually reach the top floor, where Banite cultists are assembling explosives. You'd think that there you'd be able to confront them with some dialogue, or get evidence of their wrongdoings and report it to the city news. But instead, all you can do is kill them, and once you do, that's it. That's the end of the quest. There is no real payoff with this quest, no ability to expose Gortash, the authorities, or even Arthur himself. All the initial setup for the quest just fizzles out into a boring combat encounter, where the best resolution is to just blow up the entire building in order to take down all the cultists. The first time that I finished this quest, I was confused and thought I had done something wrong to make the quest end early, but that's just the end of the quest. It's a quest with a resolution that feels extremely unfinished and abrupt, and it's definitely one I never wanted to do again once I did it for the first time in my initial playthrough of the game. The quest of Dribbles the Clown is one of the most bizarre and monotonous quests in the entire game. Again, in Act 3 of the game, it starts promisingly enough, as in the circus you'll be attacked by a doppelganger clown, with the ringmaster asking you to find the real Dribbles, or his 7 severed body parts. That's already strange in itself, but what follows is a fetch quest that'll see you looking for the 7 different limbs that would not be marked on your map, and many of them are super easy to miss. Not to mention that the final piece, his head, is found just outside the waypoint of the Temple of Baal, an area that many players will not even go near until the last few hours of the game. Completing this quest without a guide is something I don't even think is possible without wasting a bunch of your time, and despite all of that, you don't even get a satisfying payoff. Once you do find all 7 pieces of dribbles, you'll hand them back to the ringmaster, who will thank you vaguely and simply pack up and disappear along with the rest of the circus, vendors and all. And the only reward from all of this hassle is the Spellmite gloves, which could have just been stolen off her instead of spending hours looking for Dribble's body parts. There's nothing after this point, no scene, no closure of any sort, and we don't even get to see Dribbles appear back to life. The whole thing feels like something that was supposed to have a much more interesting resolution with a revived Dribbles the Clown, but Dribbles is never seen in the game, making you go on a long-winded fetch quest for no reason at all. It's another quest that inspired the idea for this video, and I really wish that Larian had added some sort of conclusion to the quest in the game's epilogue, possibly with Dribbles appearing in the camp and doing some sort of performance. But unfortunately that never happened, and instead what we're stuck with is a quest that definitely earns its place among this list. You all knew that this one would be on the list. Save the Gondians sounded like the kind of quest that would be one of Act 3's emotional highlights, but instead you get multiple frustrating combat encounters and a payoff that really isn't satisfying. At the start of the quest, you meet Xana Tubin, the leader of a group of enslaved Gondian engineers who begs you to rescue his family from Gortash's Iron Fist. That premise alone had a lot of weight, but again, the execution of it all spirals into one of the most tedious gauntlets in the entire game. Fast forward a little bit and you'll be boarding a submarine to dive into the Iron Throne prison, racing against a turn-based timer to free as many Gondian hostages as possible before the whole thing collapses. What I can't deny about this section is that it's tense, but in practice, especially on your first playthrough of the game, saving everyone is brutal to do on time, and you'll often be left reloading saves again and again to get it just right. But even if you do that perfectly, it's only half the deal with this quest. You'll then need to march into the Steelwatch Foundry, where of course more Gondians are trapped under Banite control, with all of them wearing explosive collars. Every enemy will drop a device that needs to be disabled mid-combat, and if you don't deactivate them in time, you can say goodbye to the Gondian workers altogether. What I found most annoying about the combat encounters in this section is that it felt like the Gondian workers wanted to get themselves killed, and no matter how careful you are, there always seems to be some casualties. It turns what originally feels like one of your more heroic encounters in the game to something that's just exhausting, and after all your effort, you don't even get anything all too rewarding. Of course, you've destroyed the Steel Watch, but you had to do that anyway to progress the game, and trying to save the Gondians while trying to destroy the Foundry just makes the whole ordeal super tedious. As it currently stands, the quest of saving the Gondians is just a punishing series of stressful combat encounters that end in a flat and unsatisfying resolution. Like pretty much every other quest on this list that's optional, this is another quest that you'll do once out of curiosity, but then never bother with again on subsequent playthroughs. Okay, this one's a little different because it's not a quest in itself but part of a quest, and that's the Gauntlet of Shar. What starts out as an atmospheric descent into a Sharan temple ends up being one of the most mechanically frustrating sections in the entire game, and another one that has annoyed me to no end on subsequent playthroughs. What I'm specifically talking about is the various trials you have to do in order to unlock the door to get to the Night Song for one of Act 2's most climactic moments. First, you've got the Soft Step Trial, a stealth section where invisible justiciars patrol the halls, and even if one just so much as brushes next to you, your entire progress in this section is reset, and you're teleported back to the start. It's definitely a tense one at first, but quickly devolves into pure annoyance unless you try to cheese it with the invisibility effect or a character like Astarion, who has a high stealth stat. Then after this comes the self-same trial, where you'll fight clones of your own party. To be honest, out of all of these trials, this is definitely the one that I like the most, but still it can be frustrating when the clones spam the same attack again and again, or use a spell that knocks out your entire party. Then we have the worst trial of them all in my opinion, and that's the Faith Leap trial. This so-called puzzle sees you needing to follow a completely hidden path across an empty void, but it's so vague and punishing that you'll most likely be desperately hopping from platform to platform, praying that you don't get sent back to the start. I honestly don't know how anyone can do this one without some sort of guide, and some people online even mention putting up your brightness to the max so you can see the outline of the path itself. But if that's supposed to be a solution to the puzzle, you can definitely see why this quest earns itself on this list. I only found this out when doing the research for this video, but luckily it's actually possible to skip the annoying puzzles of the gauntlet altogether by casting the knock spell on the final door and getting on your way. The only redeeming factor of this quest is that it's part of one of the game's greatest quests involving the Night Song and a critical moment for Shadowheart, but the puzzles themselves are definitely the worst in the entire game. Again, this isn't a quest in itself, but it's part of a quest that in itself isn't too great. The quest Lift the Shadow Curse serves as Halsin's recruitment and companion quest, and the climax of this quest provides you with one of the most irritating combat encounters in the entire game. It starts with Halsin asking you to follow him lakeside north of the Last Light Inn in Act 2, with him opening up a portal to the Shadowfell and asking you to help keep it open while he attempts to rescue Thaniel within. Once he steps into this portal, you're stuck defending it from 4 unforgiving rounds of shadowy enemies, from corrupted Harper and Flaming Fist soldiers to even possessed Githyanki warriors and wraiths. Their only goal will be to destroy the portal before the 4th round, and they pay almost no attention to the actions of you and your party, even as you're constantly attacking them. If you get this part wrong even a little, the portal will be destroyed and Halsin's just permanently lost from the party. The tension of this section is very clear, but the execution sucks out the emotion of what could have been an otherwise okay companion quest. I think one of the greatest problems with this section is that each wave just sends out practically the same enemies over and over again, and so you're stuck with the same repetitive combat routine until the 4 turns are up. If you succeed through this annoying gauntlet, Halsin will stagger out of the portal carrying Thaniel, and that's pretty much it. There's no dramatic sequence for when he returns or a reward that will actually satisfy the combat encounter you just endured. I think one of the worst things about this is that it's fairly easy to fail, especially on higher difficulties, and if you do, not only does the quest itself fail, but again, Halsin will disappear forever, and your only option is to redo it all again. It's one of the most frustrating instances on this entire list, as it's a pretty cool idea in theory, but it quickly loses its emotional substance, as you're stuck doing the same repetitive combat routine again and again for 4 long rounds straight. Now, the final entry on our list is a result of one of the most cursed decisions you can make in the game, with it being the Raid the Grove quest. Now, this quest is not a hard one or an annoying one like many of the other ones on this list. It's actually pretty straightforward once you side with Minthara. All you need to do is tell Minthara of the Emerald Grove's location and help her kill all the druids and tieflings inside. Of course, you'll have the goblins on your side in the combat encounters, and all of it will end with you having a feast with the goblins and Minthara in your camp. But none of this feels inherently earned. The fights themselves are quite easy, and it just feels more brutal than anything else. But for me, what makes this one of the worst quests in the game is that in siding with Minthara and by raiding the Grove, you lock yourself out of a lot of the game's quests and characters, and it isn't worth it at all. Raiding the Grove will lock you out of recruiting or keeping Will, Karlach and Halsin, and even Gale might abandon your party unless you're able to pass a dialogue check. In addition to that, critical vendors in the game like Dammon will be dead, so all of their Act 2 equipment is lost to you, and a massive chunk of what would be your allies in the final fight against the Absolute disappeared just like that. And to be honest, you don't really get much in reward. Originally, for the quest, the big reward for doing it was Minthara as a companion herself. Balerion patched the game a while ago to allow you to recruit her even without raiding the Grove, which is how I personally first recruited her. So with that change, all incentive to do this quest pretty much gets thrown right out the window. Personally, I think unless you're trying to play as a specific Dark Urge or a complete psychopath, this quest doesn't just feel bad, but it is bad plain and simple. The quest not only has consequences that will lock you out of many of the game's greatest characters and quests, but the fights and mechanics within the quest itself are not inherently interesting at all, which all results in a quest that's flat through and through. And that pretty much wraps up 7 quests I think most players hate in Baldur's Gate 3, and all of these are some of the worst quests in a game that otherwise has absolutely phenomenal quests overall. If you think that I missed a quest just as bad as any on this list, or I made a mistake in one of these sections, please feel free to let me know down below. Anyway, that's all from me for today's video. If you enjoyed, please consider subbing to the channel for more Baldur's Gate 3 and RPG content, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.